Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Make It Your Business podcast. I am Duncan Casey from Copper Sprocket Content Marketing, and this is James Murray of James Murray Finance. If you're new to the show, welcome. If you're returning, welcome. And if you're in some other category, such as time travel, welcome. Basically, welcome. It's nice to see you, and we hope this is edifying. In this show, we're really hoping to speak as business owners who are on the journey rather than those who are at the end of the journey, or are at a level that perhaps is unrelatable to other people who are in our situation. So we hope this is edifying for you and gives you lots of practical tips, tricks, advice from two entrepreneurs.
Thank you for the intro. I'm not getting bored of the unique setups and
the ramble. I am, as you'll see, I am the yin very much to James's yang, or whatever it is, the shambolic one and the very organised. But he's in finance, so
they're very efficient. So I thought today you've got a project on the go at the moment, and it brought up a topic for us to discuss, such as logistics, project management. So I thought we'd delve into that today. So, whether you're delivering media, consulting, construction type project, when it comes to a week-long project, the stakes are high. There's a lot that goes into it, such as logistics, pricing, travel, permissions, insurance. So I thought we'd get stuck into that today.
Sure, why not?
So you've got a project on at the moment in Scotland.
Yes.
I think it starts next week.
Yep. As at the time of recording, when this episode goes out, it probably will have happened.
Yeah.
So I'll look a lot older. And yeah.
Well, that's a good analogy, because most of the work, I think, comes in the preparation. Well, and I know you're putting a lot of prep into this. So what's going into that, and what is making you age quicker?
Well, that and children. But no, this has been so soup to nuts. This will have been January. I started talking to the client. And this is probably one of my first sort of cold call to project things, really. I think, like, fully, or when you could call that anyway. And it's a really exciting client, but it's taken months of like conceptualizing, storyboarding, client, stakeholder meetings, getting it nailed down. Getting the brief nailed down, and then the budget nailed down, and then executing. Very much like you say, though, that there's that Abraham Lincoln quote about, was it, give me 5 hours to chop down a tree and I'll spend the first 3 sharpening the axe. A lot of it, the more prepared you are, the easier the execution generally. Especially with film shoots, things inevitably go wrong. And there's always a last minute panic on. We were just talking off air before this about a car that I need to get there. And that's been because invariably, no matter how much you try and plan something, you'll have to find a last minute solution, because something will fall through or become available that then knocks a bunch of other plans out the way. But you have to prioritize it for
you have to be prepared to be unprepared almost.
Yeah.
It's one of those, that quote, the Abraham Lincoln quote, reminds me of one of my first managers, Kenny, at a Mazda dealership, and one of the first things he told me was, proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. And it always stuck with me. And I live by that now.
But if I fail to plan, I plan to fail.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. It's true, but I mean, unfortunately, you do also have to. Very much the nature of filming. In general, is you have to be ready to think on the hoof, because there's going to be yes, you put that, you need to make sure you've got everything with you, because that's always another. We're shooting in Elgin, which is to a Sassenach like me, it's the sort of far outer reaches of
beautiful.
It's gorgeous. I mean, think the end of Skyfall. That's what we're going for. So we've got a very, very capable drone pilot. We're going to get lots of POV shots. We basically get chase shots of cars. And
can you say a bit more about what the project is? Or
I should think so, yeah. So it's for a really, really cool client called McLean and Bruce. They do, just shout out to them, they do amazing sort of bespoke prestige tours of Scotland. They're based around whiskey, but they also have, it's sort of turned into this just bespoke experience that they craft for people. So it tends to be high net worth individuals or, C-suite people from America or something will come here and experience, they've had things like, some people wanted the sort of Top Gear meets James Bond experience. So she arranged for Land Rovers on rafts to come down a river, and then they all got in that and drove, and then, went down the Thames in tuxedos and had some training with Simon, forget his surname now, who trained Daniel Craig at Pinewood. They went to Pinewood, did the sort of stunt training. Yeah, so just things like that. They've had clients who wanted to go out, wanted to ride a horse down a beach and then go scallop fishing.
So were you creating a promo?
Yeah. So what was the synergy really between us and them has been that they, because I think how their business has shifted from just being about whiskey, gastronomic tours really of Scotland, but certainly based around whiskey, because Charlie McLean, who's one of the partners, he is like the authority on Scotch whiskey. They needed to encapsulate something, I think, in video. We've talked about marketing being the context for your business a lot on this show, and it's very true. And I think with them, what they were lacking, they've got a lot of stock imagery that looks beautiful and definitely is fitting with their brand image. And then they'd have like the odd video or iPhone footage of stuff they've done, but it's like having a mood film that really, inspires, I think was the main brief for this, because obviously it's not something you can really. I initially thought, we'll just film a tour, but actually you can't really.
So are you going to create sort of a 10-minute promo, and then have a load of B-roll footage that they'll then repurpose for other things? What's the overall?
That's the aim, yeah. So we'll have I don't know about 10 minutes. It probably won't be that long, but it will be a good couple of minute, just really immersive. I did I put together a sort of mood film for her as part of the pitch, which I think helped sell it. So it was really like about just Scottish imagery, lots of, the usual earth, wind and fire, elemental things going on, and lots of close-ups of whiskey stills and pouring. And we want to get some coopering in there, which is the making of whiskey barrels.
Okay. That
kind of thing. So we really want to just immerse ourselves in all that, but also have that adventurous element to it. So it's going to have a narrative, and it's going to involve vehicles. We've got access to the Macallan estate, which is very rare. You're not normally allowed in there. I had to go through a ton of paperwork last week, and this is something we can go on to about logistics that drop out all of a sudden. Yes. I had to write mission statements, health and safety policy, have all the relevant insurances, but it'll be worth it because it'll be an amazing thing to shoot.
Yeah, talking about the sort of legalities and things makes me think of like the FYRE Festival.
Right. Tell me about that, because I don't know what that is.
Well, so have you not heard of the FYRE Festival? Watch the documentary.
No.
Okay. Well, for those that haven't, so the FYRE Festival was a sort of branded as a luxury music festival in the Bahamas.
That's where I'm from.
Bahama Island. That's what I beg your pardon.
I was born in the Bahamas, yeah.
We're going to learn something every day.
Yeah. I was born in that sort of thing. I know, this is more to my shame.
And apparently, I think originally it was set to be on Pablo Escobar Island or something, but it was missold. And anyway, the whole thing's a shambles, to be honest. But these guys, I think, started off with the best of intentions. They were selling a luxury music festival experience, very high end. Their target market was the super wealthy or very rich, and tickets were sort of ranging. I think the lowest entry was maybe $500 to $1,000, but they ranged up to $100,000.
Wow!
And they sold out really well. The marketing was very strong. They used celebrity endorsement. They had influencers, and they sold lots of tickets. And they promised gourmet food, super yachts, villas and everything on this island, and yeah, they sold a lot of tickets, but it kind of became unraveled very quickly. They ended up not checking all of the sewage requirements. There was no toilets, and they overbooked the flights. They didn't have security. Everything went wrong. There was about $26 million invested into the project from investors and other people that had all of which lost their money. And the show or the festival got cancelled. People sort of turned up. They missed flights because they'd overbooked the flights, as I say. And there was about £2 million worth of refund requests, most of which most people never saw their money back. So it's just an example, really, of upfront marketing gone well, but with no back end operations. And I mean, these guys have got no experience in running a large scale event, so that they didn't need any advice from health and safety or any other people around them. There's a documentary, I don't know if it's on Prime or Netflix or one of those, but sort of goes into, you could see it was unraveling, but they just kind of went full steam ahead, just tried to go through the motions, but eventually, and I think the guy that ran it, he ended up there was some legal action taken against him as well. And
not surprised. I mean, that this is often what I come up against. It's not always, but you get sometimes you get clients. What I face a lot is people's expectations about budget. That's often the big sticking point, as it is with most things. But, often their ambition exceeds their budget. And then when you start talking about technical stuff and legalities and licenses and that kind of thing, it tends to, because you're dealing with people who are very, oftentimes it's like they're excited about the idea of this creative project. But, they don't want to deal with the nitty gritty stuff. But if you don't, like you say, it can unravel very quickly. And I think, when you're using like drones and filming, I mean, luckily in this project, we're filming, generally speaking, on private property or, out in the hills. So we don't have to worry too much about permits. Yeah. You have to worry about like pilots.
Yeah, because there's airspace.
Yeah, we're near RAF something, which is, and Inverness as well, have a lot of, it's funny enough, one of my good friends from school flies air ambulance out of Inverness, so he was able to just give me some tips. He's actually in Saudi at the moment, but he was able to, we're still hoping, I mean, it's like a few days away at this point, but we're hoping to get a helicopter as well. It's basically coming down to chance on that one. Again, this is thinking on your feet, because basically to charter a helicopter is very expensive. We do have an in with a company, but they've said you can film with us, but it has to be at a time when we're actually flying, which is then very hard to,
How do you combat the creative side with the legalities and the sort of more, maybe what would be considered boring sort of paperwork element?
I mean, I suppose I'm used to it now, in the sense that quite often, like on this project, I'm director, producer, and I'm going to be on-screen talent, because I was like, there's no point in hiring an actor, flying them up there.
Do you want to miss them on this?
Well, this haggard face.
Got this for the day. We might take advantage of it.
Yeah, no, like it's just what I do as well. So fair enough. In fact, it's what I've done most of my career has been an actor. So makes sense, I guess. We'll see. But I'm used to sort of putting together a concept. I mean, usually, like if I'm putting together the concept, I'll start with what I want to do. And then I'll go, right, what do we need? It'd be easy for me to then piece together, okay, what do I need? And then I have great, it's not just me doing it. I've got Grant, our drone pilot, is fantastic. He's from Bristol. So he's really like that. He sort of goes, all right, yeah, no, I reckon I can do that. That's fine. And he's got some great ideas, and he's always like, yeah, don't worry about it. And you see his stuff. I mean, Grant Smith, shout out to him. If you guys ever need a drone pilot, he'll follow like rally cross cars. He did one, he showed me one, he goes, bit of shame, it sounds like Tom Kerridge when it's a bit of shame, got some mud on the lens, because he did this amazing cross shot with a rally car that was going around a corner, and he was so close to it flicked mud all over the lens. So yeah, he's amazing. And then Richard Jackson, who's like my right hand, he's my director of photography, and he's very good at going, yeah, we can do that, and then going, here's the kit list, as an extra grand or whatever, but it's fine, it's what you need. So he's a very calming influence on me as well, which I do appreciate. So yeah, that's usually there is the reality of having to put it together. And luckily in this case with Vicky, who's my client, she's very amenable. She understands it's a collaborative process. She's happy to roll her sleeves up and get involved. She's been able to source some amazing, like the McAllen estates, all through her connections. So
So with just one last bit on there, on the sort of logistics and the insurances and stuff, do you have to get specialist insurance for that sort of thing, or does just your PI sort of cover that?
So I have basic liability, and I have to have employers insurance as well, which I do have. And then the guys, so Grant has his own insurance and obviously his pilot's license and everything. So that's for drones. And then Richard has his own as well because, he has it because he does a lot of jobs where he's taking his kit to sets and what have you. And so, of course, if he drops something on someone's foot or whatever, so yeah, we all have our own insurances. Because it comes down to also when you're on someone's property, oftentimes you've got to go, here's our health and safety policy. Here's, because they treat you like you're supplying taps or whatever. But, well, we're not, but we have a policy. Here it is, fine. You have to be prepared for all that. And health, environmental policy as well, I had to write, which was involved because it's on the Spey. No, what's the river? Pants, I can't remember. Anyway, I put it in there saying we won't discharge waste into the Spey.
Planning on doing that.
No, yeah, I know.
Yeah, they're weeing in the wood.
No, okay. Damn.
So when it comes to, and I think obviously to try and make it relatable to, I guess, both people that are maybe looking to do media content or create video, or other businesses that are in your field, or when that also have to price up jobs that are very much a moving target. How do you attack that? How do you price it? How do you make sure you deliver on it and also don't go over budget?
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of that comes down to experience, and you've always got that push pull of the client doesn't want to overpay, and this is all relative as well. So it could be they've only got $2,000 to spend, or they might have 100 grand to spend, but it doesn't. You're still trying to fit things into that budget, and a lot of it's personnel. And I think, like a lot of people say, or good movie making is good casting, and that's true of the crew and the cast as well. So I tend to find that as long as I sort of get the right people involved, that tends to keep me from going massively over budget. But then it's things like needing to hire things last minute, that kind of stuff. Is you've got to build that in. So you probably need to give yourself a 20-30% margin at least for stuff that can come in, so it's difficult. And then you need to, people always say in business, you need to pay yourself. People always forget that as a business owner. I do as well. I start pricing up jobs and they go, hang on, that's everyone else's day rate, what about mine? So
some industries, let's say in construction, they'll add lots of profit along the way. So if they're supplying parts, they'll add 10% onto each of the parts, then an extra bit onto the labor, and then so they'll kind of put little bits in on top of what they're making.
Yeah. And it's not something you can because a lot of people, we see this a lot nowadays. Everyone's online, everyone's making video, we're doing it on our phones like everyone else, but they think that just, if you're going to go out and make a big, how is that any different to making a proper corporate video or, any kind of film?
Yeah, I mean, we just knocked this up. You've got some of the equipment.
I, by the way, forgot a lot of it today because
at this stage, we're both running full-time businesses, so we're sort of...
and young families.
Well, yeah, that as well. But, I mean, it's just trying to fit those things around. So you're better off, I think our opinion at the moment is we're better off producing something, and the quality of the content, maybe the things can improve as they go along with the imagery and the equipment. But that does then take having a team of people. I mean, when you look at these big productions, you don't always see the people behind the screen, the amount of editing that goes on, the different multiple camera people behind. I mean, obviously going back to basics, this is just set up by us. So
yeah, but someone on cue, someone's just started it.
Yeah, that's all part. It's all good fun and nice.
Someone's building
I've got some construction work going right outside my office at the moment, so we've got it sounds like a dumper. Maybe it's a digger. I don't know.
But you would know better than I. That's yeah.
So I was going to say, when it comes to pricing all of those elements up, at the front end, you can obviously do that. But what happens when things do go wrong? So let's say it might be that some things all of a sudden change. You maybe priced the job 3 months ago. I don't know when you originally put it, but do you have sort of a bit of flex with your client in the contract? You sort of say, look, if I'm guessing you don't have the case where maybe materials cost as much, but with inflation, the cost of renting something, getting that helicopter in might cost a bit more, or whatever it is that you need to do.
Yeah.
Do you just bespoke that, I guess, to each client?
Yeah. So I mean, in the case of this job, I put in an estimate, which was based around certain criteria. When it came down to it, we had our final meetings and stuff, and I'd done a storyboard, and we kind of got down to what we wanted. I put more of a firm budget together, and it did go up a little bit. I managed to spread some costs for them because we needed an extra day of filming, basically, which is, that means more crew costs and that kind of thing. So I was able to, I basically moved some stuff around so it didn't cost as much, but that happens. And then in the case of this client, because I guess the nature of their business as well, she has a lot of access to really great stuff. And I said, if you can arrange those things, you can control those costs. So
I suppose there's some of those 1% where but actually maybe they cost 10% of the budget. So it might be well, if you can sacrifice on this and this, we can actually decrease it by this much to get around with budget.
Yeah, I mean, I basically reduced. Well, in the case of that one, it's like I reduced my day rate here and there just to accommodate an extra day with our DOP, and then there's various logistics. I mean, there's things like I hired a car rather than fly us there, because flying us there would have required then,
with
equipment. Yeah, like equipment. By the time you've added all of that on, it's like actually cheaper just to hire a car and drive.
So you're not staying at I was going to say St Andrews, or it's probably not even anywhere close. You're not staying at luxury.
Well, luckily we're filming at an amazing place called Innis House, which is like a castle, basically. One of those, and they do accommodations, so they've been gracious enough to let us stay there for a reduced fee. Will
you do any filming of you filming? So market your business.
Well, that's something I've got to be better at. Yes. So I've got it in my. I mean, I will be wearing many hats on this shoot, but I am aware that I've got to get content for the company.
Yeah. The irony.
I know. Well, it's the busman's holiday thing, isn't it? It's like you never have. You're stretched very thin on these things because invariably I can't afford like a production assistant, a location manager, all the people who would take care of all of that stuff. I have to do all that. And manage the set and be on camera. So, and then somehow manage to take video of photos. But it just is what it is. You've just got to be.
What about preparing for weather? You're in Scotland. It's beautiful there at the moment, but we do in the UK. The weather can change very quickly. You've obviously got a set amount of days there. How can you even prepare against? And obviously a lot of this, the premise is being outside the wonderful sort of scenic landscape. Are you just hitting hope, just praying?
Well, luckily we can fly in relatively inclement weather, which is handy. I haven't actually checked the weather report yet. No, well, I mean, it is kind of what it is. Our schedule's dictated by when we've got access to the various locations that we are going to. So there's that. We're also hoping to use the Royal Scotsman train, which we still don't know about, but I'm hoping we get a good result on that soon. So it's you can't control the weather. I've been on big films and stuff where it just buckets down or something goes wrong and you just have to crack on. I mean, on those, you can tweak things in post to make it look better, but we're not necessarily trying to sell it as sunny Scotland. It's Scotland, so
it'd just be ideal if the weather was slightly overcast.
Yeah.
So, putting the marketing hat on, and again, I'm just trying to bring this back round to what might be relevant to our listeners, viewers. Once your client has this video, what would be your recommendation with how they purpose it and best utilize it?
So we're doing the main video, and then I'm going to give her a few, some cut downs for social. So we could about 10 cut downs for social media. That's the idea. In a case like this, I think it's, what you want to be doing is firstly, it can serve as a paid ads campaign if you're going to do that. In their case, I would say it needs
paid ads, Google, Facebook.
Yeah. You can use it and LinkedIn, I suppose. Although in their case, I don't know that they're targeting this. So, well, she does use LinkedIn. But I think it's a case of coming up with a bit more of an orchestrated campaign. I think they could use a lot of the behind the scenes stuff as well, because I think it makes them look cooler, just shots of the drone taking off or, behind the scenes, but your usual sort of like tripods and kit boxes and, Apple boxes, the kind of thing that you have on a set, that'll make it look cool. That kind of thing. I think I would say use it as part of the narrative of your brand. We need to have a story behind it. But I would say for marketing wise, they need to, you've got the cut downs, get those out there, get it looking cinematic. It's slightly different to what I would normally do with a client from a video marketing standpoint, just because this is more advertising, not so much marketing. I think if you were to, I had originally sort of spoken to them about trying to shoot some interviews, because they work with a lot of chefs, some of them sort of celebrity chefs like Tony Singh, and I was like, well, if we can get them on camera, then that means you can kind of do a bit more of an orchestrated thing, and then you can tie that into your copy. We could write some blogs, we could do this just based off the videos, and maybe there'll be scripts to do that with them down the line. This is more of a kind of flagship video that is going to represent their brand and what they do. So it's a case with this one, it's on their website,
website video, and cut downs across social media platforms, with it's more of a branding piece than it is anything else.
In this case, yes.
What would you then follow if that client ideally then said to you, okay, Duncan, we want you to now go and for the next 12 months create a kind of a marketing cadence and put something in place that we can, based on their sort of target demographic, would you, I'm guessing then you've sort of answered it there, you would create case studies, you would do interviews, and then create separate sort of landing pages for that to sort of reach out via sort of organic traffic?
I think in their case, because, and I've said this to them as well already, but they're very much a brand immersed in story and narrative, because it's about telling the story of Scotland, telling the story of all these things, but then giving it to their clients and saying, let's come up with something. What do you want to do? Let's have an adventure. So it's all about narrative storytelling, but with like I always say, it's about protagonists need to have, and it's true of marketing, and it's true of design as well. It's like you always need, whenever you design something creative, you need to leave that room for your ideal client or an audience to fill it with themselves. It's certainly true of like performance in a leading role. You can't be too specific with yes, you have a character, and yes, they would respond a certain way, but they do need, and often that comes down to writing as well, but they do need to leave that room for an audience to come in and fill it with themselves. And the same is true with this type of video marketing, when it's a narrative driven story, and especially with these guys, it's like, I need to be able to step into that world and be inspired by what you're showing me. So it can't be too specific. I think when it comes to a marketing campaign, I would say let's see that as like a behind the scenes thing. So what I would do is say to them, look, if we could come and film with you once a month, we'll just do a day in the life of Vicky, and it's like, right, today we're going off to see that, and it'll be in the car talking about what they're doing. And then in that, talking about what it's like putting together one of these tours, and on the phone and dinner, and just get a load of footage together, and then spend that month putting out content. Because I think that's how to see it, is that they're very much it's a story brand, and then the story of them, the meta narrative, if you like, is the orchestration of these things and what it takes to do that. Because I think the more you can educate potential clients on the immersive experience, but also how they go about organizing it, I think it shows them the value of it, and it inspires them hopefully to to want to leap into it as well.
Yeah, that can be put across many different businesses, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and it also, I mean, when it comes to then written content, you can make blogs and stuff about organizing shooting. That she had a luxury submarine that she can have out. So, talk about that.
There's so much content to work with.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, is there anything else in particular that you think with regards to anybody doing project management or arranging a large sort of 1-2 week on-site productions that you could sort of give any advice to those sort of people?
I think it comes down. It just comes down to partnering with the right people, and you need someone who can understand what you need. Who's been there really. I know I would say that, but a lot of it is. I think in my case, it's perhaps over-engineered, but understanding what can go right and what can go wrong.
Is it about anything about supporting yourself with the right team? So, if, for example, a project like this, you just can't do it on your own, can you?
No, and I mean, I've bitten off probably more than I could chew just from a work standpoint. But I mean, if you're a business owner, it's who, not how. You've got to find the right person who can run that for you. And unfortunately, I would say don't go with the lowest bidder, because that person's probably winging it in a lot of areas. I mean, don't get me wrong, like we will always try and keep budgets to a reasonable place, but
I think that's where, going back round to the bit we said earlier, it's really important that you're evidencing the work you're doing, so you're recording it, because when you then come up and let's say your price point is in the middle of 2 others, because I think a lot of people will go out and they'll get quoted by maybe 3 companies for many different types of project.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the person in the middle, if you can show that added value in the work you do, in the videos that you produce, the blogs, the recommendations or referrals, that kind of goes full circle on the reason why we produce this content in the first place. And then you're showing that value add. Whereas that ABC company that come in and they quote 30% lower than you, but they can't back it up with any evidence work that they've already done, I know that I would be willing to pay a little bit more to have that reassurance that I'm working with a professional.
Yeah, it's the old buy cheap, buy twice thing, and not only that, but if you've got someone who also understands SEO and marketing, content marketing, ideally I would work with a brand. Well, ideally we would handle all of their content, and therefore we would have a keyword strategy, and then we'd use that to determine what we shoot with the film, and we'd fold it all together. But sometimes you work with people who've got a marketing strategist or department or whatever, but it's about having someone who from conceptual stage is going to go, okay, what are you targeting in your marketing right now? What are your keywords? This would be more apropos of someone who is perhaps in more of a keyword oriented business. So if in finance, for example, who are you targeting? What are you over the next sort of 6 months? What long form keywords are you wanting people to, or search terms do you want people to find you from? Let's work back from that
and tie that in with the additional content that you're producing, so it all is all encompassing.
Because video, again, I say to people think it's just about like copy on your website, blogs, that kind of thing. It's all relevant. Google now will transcribe videos, so it knows what you're saying in the video. So you have to be, mindful of your keywords in that. I mean, we should be doing it here, really. I mean, we're getting there, but that's what you need. Is you need someone. It needs to be a holistic approach, because quite often I find that people will jump into these things and expect results from them instantly, but won't be willing to front load the cost in terms of organizing.
And I think we're a great example at the moment. Sometimes you just got to get started. I did it with my blog posts on my website originally. I didn't really focus too much on that. I'm quite a generalist finance broker provider, so I just produced some content just to get going, and then I've refined it over time and then seen the results have improved steadily as you then niche down. In fact, what we'll do, we'll talk about niching on another podcast.
Definitely.
For now, I think that pretty much wraps that up. I think the overall message here is if you're doing project management, make sure that you're fully prepared, you've looked at the infrastructure, you don't under budget, you price correctly, and most importantly, you deliver on what you say you're going to do.
Yep.
Thanks for listening, everybody. If you would like to get in touch, please do. You can leave a message and send us your stories with regards to any projects you've done, whether you've overpriced, underpriced, the wins and also the lows. We'd love to hear.
Definitely, yes. If you can write to us actually at them, it's makeityourbusinesspodcast@gmail.com is our email address, which I shall put here. So we'd love to hear from you. Yes, definitely.
Brilliant. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.